Welcome to Kids Talk Church History, a one-of-a-kind podcast where kids investigate the history of the church. Over 2,000 years ago, Jesus said, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." So, has he kept his promise? How has Jesus built and preserved his church against all odds? Come with us on a trip through history to find the answer, here on Kids Talk Church History.
Did you know that as late as 1850, people in Italy could still be arrested for owning a Bible and imprisoned for giving Bibles to others? This is what happened to a Florentine couple who were arrested for owning 2 copies of the Bible. They were imprisoned under suspicion that they were reading it or distributing it to others. Stay with us as we learn more about this and other stories of religious persecution in the 19th century. Here, as usual, at Kids Talk Church History. I'm Grace. I am 13 years old, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina.
I'm Isaac. I'm 10 years old, and I also live in Raleigh, North Carolina.
I am Sean, and I'm 14 from Augusta, Kansas. Wait, so Italy was a Roman Catholic country, right? Don't Roman Catholics read the Bible?
I think they do now, or at least they can if they want to. But the Protestant Reformation made the Roman Catholic Church fearful of what people could get out of the Bible. It was by reading the Bible that Martin Luther understood that we're saved by grace through faith alone, and not through our good works.
So they banned the Bible?
Initially, they burned any translation of the Bible into Italian that had not been authorized by the church. Then they published an authorized translation with lots of notes that explained what every passage meant. One pope said that any Bible without these notes was poison.
So I assume that this couple from Florence had a couple of Bibles without, the notes.
I think so. Their names were Francesco and Rosa Mattei. They had both worked for a British family, so that's probably how they got their Bibles. Then they made a living by taking in lodgers, so the church suspected that they were circulating Bibles to others. I don't know all the details, though.
What happened to them?
After 10 months in prison, where Francesco actually became sick, they were tried in the Supreme Court and accused of, quote, being promoters of the so-called evangelical confession or of the pure gospel, and of proselytizing, not so much by teaching, but rather through the circulation of books and printed materials to the damage and dishonor of the Catholic religion, unquote.
Quote, being promoters of the pure gospel, unquote. Wow, that's a terrible crime. What was their punishment?
Francesco was condemned to 4 years and 8 months of hard labor, and Rosa to 3 years and 9 months of prison. They also had to pay all the expenses for the trial. After serving their time, they would be released, but still had to be under police surveillance for 3 years.
Just for owning 2 Bibles and possibly sharing them with others?
Yes, but thankfully, Francesco and Rosa had been working for a British family, so their story made news in England and other countries, and there was a flood of letters of protest. So the punishment was changed to exile. The couple moved to Nice, France, where they worked for a Bible society.
Were they ever able to go back to Italy?
Yes, eventually they did, thanks to a change in government.
I'm a bit confused. Did the Roman Catholic Church send them to prison or the government?
I think they worked together, but I should let our expert explain these things. He's Dr. Mario Cignoni, General Secretary of the Bible Society in Italy and author of many books. Dr. Cignoni, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
So you've heard us talking a little bit about the Mattei. Did we get anything wrong?
No, you did not say anything wrong. It was very clear what you said.
Thank you. Can you explain how a concern of the Roman Catholic Church became a crime in a state court?
Well, the problem is that each Italian state, before the unification of Italy, had a particular agreement with the Catholic Church, called generally concordato. There was a concordate between the state and the church, in which many questions were declared and became law for the state. And for you must be very strange, but Italy itself, 70 years after the unification, made an agreement with the Holy See, the Vatican, that has two documents: the treaty that gave life to the Vatican City as an independent state, and the Concordato. It was signed in 1929, in the fascist period, and revised in 1984, and it is still alive. It states, for instance, that the Catholic religion has to be taught in the Italian state schools, and that its teachers must be appointed only if authorized by a bishop.
So the Madii served a shorter sentence because they had connections in England, but I imagine other people had to stay in prison much longer. Are there other stories that made the news at that time?
Well, the Madai probably was the most outstanding, the most remarkable case. They were called and known all over Europe and even in the United States as the prisoners of Jesus Christ. In that period, other people were put to jail, imprisoned, like the Cignoni, who had a ball of iron at the foot, like in the cartoons, no? With a chain and a ball of iron. Can you believe it? In South Italy, still in 1866, that is under the unification, there was an attack against colporteurs, itinerant Bible sellers, that ended with some people, some of them, killed. 6 of them were killed. So these were the times.
In 1870, the Italian army marched into Rome to put an end to the Pope's rule over the city. Representatives of the Bible Society walked behind the army with a cart full of Italian Bibles, showing that they were finally free to distribute them. Is that a true story?
Yes, the story is real. It's history. I myself have discovered and published many documents about it. 6 colporteurs, armed with their guns, rifles, I don't know, and accompanied by a dog cart full of Bibles, entered Rome after the Italian army in that historic day, September 20th, 1870, the day that marks the end of the Papal State, and began to circulate the Bible in the city before it was forbidden. I mean, if you have an idea of time, until 1870, the Bible was out of law in Rome.
To the best of my knowledge, I understand that Italy was all divided into small states until 1861, when it then became united except for the city of Rome, which was ruled by the Pope. Is that correct?
Yes, since the Middle Ages, 1,000 years ago, even more, Italy was divided into many different countries. In the 19th century, after battles, the land was united in the Kingdom of Italy under the Savoy family. We had a king at the time, and this was proclaimed in 1861. You are correct. The area and the city of Rome remained under the control of the Pope, that was also the king of his independent state until a few years later, 1870, when happened what we said before.
I did some further reading on top of the reading that was assigned to me, and I found out that the Bible was allowed in Italy after 1870. Only a few people knew how to read. Is it true that Italy had less people who could read and write than Protestant countries like the United Kingdom or Germany?
Yes, yes. In Italy, illiteracy was all over the country. It is esteemed that at the moment of the unification, 75%, 80% of the population, mostly countrymen, did not read or write. In some areas, the percentage was even higher. From this point of view, Italy was different from the countries of North Europe. You ask me if this is due to the fact that it was a Catholic country. Well, the answer is yes, mostly because of this reason. So Italians, by the way, did not read the Bible, could not read the Bible. At the time, the Bible and the Mass in church, in the Catholic churches, were only in Latin, a tongue that people did not understand anymore. This of the Mass in Latin lasted until 1965. That for you is long ago, but for me is not long ago.
Were these restrictions on the Bible in other Catholic countries at the time, or did the persecution focus primarily in Italy, where the Pope had the most control?
Well, I will be essentials. The restrictions were mostly in Italy, for the reason that you can easily understand. But they were proclaimed, adopted by the Roman Catholic Church all over the world. In all the world, that is, in China, in Japan, in South America, in the United States, and so on, their Mass and the Bible were in Latin until, I repeat, 1965.
I have read that some Christians smuggled Bibles into Italy wrapped in waterproof material and then moved underwater, under the nose of custom officials. Then other Christians took them around Italy. It was a dangerous business. Do you have some stories to tell us about that?
Well, it was really a dangerous system, a dangerous business. I know that this happened, for instance, in the harbor, in the port of Livorno in Tuscany. In this way, Bibles were taken into the city, and from there they were spread in the town and abroad. In those times, the Bible was a forbidden book. It had to be hidden, kept in secret places. It was smuggled secretly, as today happens, for instance, for tobacco in some countries or for drug. It was completely out of law. Brave men introduced and circulated it in the country. They risked to be taken by the police, as the Madiai we heard before, and put to jail, as happened to many. To circulate the Bible, you had to be a pious and a holy person, but also a brave person, because it was not easy.
This is a different subject, but I have read that the Roman Catholic Church had so much authority at that time that they were able to take a 6-year-old Jewish boy from his family just because his nanny had secretly baptized him as a Roman Catholic. Was that unusual, or did it happen to other people?
Well, it happened to other people. In my own grandmother family that lived in the Pontifical State, one of her great uncles, when young, was kidnapped because the family was Protestant. There was a period of great worry and alarm in the family, but in the end, he was returned to his parents. This happened in the 19th century, but in ancient times, the centuries 17, 18, it happened many times. In Piedmont, North Italy, there were entire special convents for the young boys and girls taken from evangelical families, put in the convents, and raised as Catholics. So they were compelled to become Catholics. You understand? A little boy like you could be taken and put in a convent. That were the times.
How did you become interested in studying the history of the Protestant Church?
Well, because I'm one of them. And I'm interested in knowing how we got to nowadays. Now, religious matters and circulating the Bible, everything seems easy in Italy. There are not any more problems. But it was not always like that. The Protestants in Italy had to walk, to preach, and to resist for centuries, more than in other countries. Our story is that of a person that has to cross a river and throws stones one above the other on the waters, and then put its foot with confidence on the surface, because it knows that the stones disappeared in deep water will support his weight. We remember and honor those that were before us, and I am among the person that studies them and remember them and honors them.
And finally, if you could meet anyone who lived through these struggles in the 19th century, who would you choose?
Well, I love many of them. I have rediscovered in the archives their lives, sometimes unearthed them in such a way that they are, for one side, my forefathers, but also my children, and I'm proud of them because I have figured them out. And to me, they are still alive. I'd like to know those that entered Rome, because I'm a Roman citizen. Those that entered Rome with a dog cart and many others. Especially, probably, my great-great-grandfather, a sea captain of a vessel that in 1853, before the unification, after a storm, entered into the port of Nice, France, that you remembered before, and met Francesco and Rosa Madiai, who gave him a Bible, and since then he became a Protestant, the first of my family name. He took the Bible to his country, an island in Tuscany, went into a legal trial, had many problems, but at the end he had the joy of seeing a Protestant church growing out of that Bible in its native little town.
Well, Dr. Cignoni, we are so thankful that you agreed to spend this time with us. And listeners, be sure to check out our website, kidstalkchurchhistory.org, and let us know what you think of these episodes. And keep asking questions. As soon as we are able, we'll pass them on to our guest experts. We also want to let you know about a great new scripture memory plan for kids created by the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals. Be sure to check it out at reformedresources.org. In partnership with the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals, and on behalf of my co-hosts, Isaac and Sean, I am Grace. Thank you for listening to Kids Talk Church History.